seventh canto, a chapter titled Instructions for Civilized Moving. You know what? Everybody can move forward. And I feel like there's a big gulf, ocean, and no us in there. Unity, diversity, diversity, unity. So Paul was translating these reports behind the opening of the Balarama temple one year in Vrindavan. And our position in this material world is we're in quite a situation because we're eternal living beings, but we're placed in a situation where we're forced to undergo the stringent laws of material nature, which involves repeated birth, death, disease, and old age, and all other types of unwanted miseries upon us. With our original nature is eternal life full of bliss and knowledge. So in this chapter where Narada Muni is instructing Maharaj Yudhishthira, Prabhupada writes very nice purports to guide us ultimately to the mercy of Krishna Balarama, who has appeared in this age as Shishimani. Who here in this room has visited the Krishna Balarama Mandir at ISKCON NYC? Raise their hands. So Srila Prabhupada made the temple that you enter and you offer your first respects to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and by the mercy you can actually understand Krishna and Balaram. And finally, the ultimate goal of life, to worship the divine couple, Shishimana, Shamsundar, with their eternal associates, said Bhagavati and Vishaka, is accomplished by first getting the mercy of Holy Time in this very form of age of Kali Yuga. The human form of body is meant for understanding the self and the supreme self, both of whom are transcendently superior. If both of them can be understood when one is purified by advanced knowledge, for what reason and for whom does a foolish person, greedy person, maintain body for sense gratification? Transcendentalists who are advanced in knowledge compare the body, which is made by the order personality of Godhead, to a chariot. The senses are like the horses. The mind, the master of the senses, is like the reins, and objects of the senses are the destinations. Intelligence is the chariot driver, and consciousness, which spreads out the body, is the cause of bondage in this material world. So we say to people, it's not cars and buses driving down the street. It's people driving the cars and buses down the street. So it's not just material bodies going here and there, for whatever purpose under the laws of nature, but it's spirit souls within the material body. So here, a very nice, common and often breakdown or example of how the body is like a chariot, the senses, the intelligence, the mind, are the different parts of the vehicle, the body. Just like a car, you have the steering wheel, you have the brake pad, you have the accelerator, turning lights, etc., etc., etc. And one is given a driver's license if one shows that one knows how to drive the car. And if one doesn't know how to drive the car or drives the car improperly, it could be very bad. It can be a terrible accident. Whereas the driver, and what to speak of others, other drivers or other pedestrians, can be injured unnecessarily because of your driving your car the wrong way. The 10 kinds of air acting within the body are compared to the spokes of the chariot's wheels. And the top and bottom of the wheel itself are called religion and irreligion. The living entity in the bodily concept of life is the owner of the chariot. The Vedic mantra, Pranav, is the bow, and the pure living entity himself is the arrow, and the target is the Supreme Being. We don't have time, but this is a nice purport. I know for one Sadhu Sangha festival, they made a T-shirt that the living entity is like hurling himself at the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is kind of a parallel to how Prabhupada would say, taking to spiritual life, especially in this at this time in the material world in Kali Yuga, is more or less a declaration of war against the illusory energy, who, her thankless task, her job is to defeat the practitioner, which is basically a test of one's sincerity. Success is assured for the rigid practitioner, Prabhupada says one place in the Bhagavad Gita. So it's simply a question of our sincerity that will make us victorious. In the conditioned stage, one's conceptions of life are sometimes polluted by passion and ignorance, which are exhibited by attachment, hostility, greed, lamentation, illusion, fear, madness, false prestige, insults, fault-finding, deception, envy, intolerance, passion, bewilderment, hunger, and sleep. All of these are enemies. Sometimes one's conceptions are also polluted by goodness. So the mind is a subtle sense. Most people without spiritual knowledge, their conception of selfhood, I am, they're simply identifying with the mind, which is just like water is pure, but if you put anything in it, it tastes like that substance that you put in. If you put like a nice, like rose or something, and it's very nice. But if you put a drop of alcohol, or what to speak of poison, then that water is useless. And for the water to be made useful, it has to undergo a process of purification, which sometimes, or mostly, hopefully, it'll work. That's on the stage of purifying water. But on the stage of purifying consciousness, if one undergoes the proper prescribed method, Cheto Darbana Marjanam, it is guaranteed that you will regain your original pure consciousness. All glories to the Sankirtan movement, which cleanses the heart and mind and consciousness of all the dirt, dust, and unwanted things that have been accumulated for lifetimes together. The actual aim of life is to go back to home, back to Godhead, but there are many hindrances created by the three modes of material nature. As long as one has to accept the material body with its different parts and paraphernalia, which are not fully under one's control, one must have the lotus feet of his superiors, namely his spiritual master and the spiritual master's predecessors. By their mercy, one can sharpen the sword of knowledge. By reading Srila Prabhupada's books or coming in contact with him via any method, we're so lucky. Srila Prabhupada is the first acharya of the modern technological age. There are so many, and Prabhupada, as early as 1965, when he was living up on West 72nd Street, he got a tape recorder, and there are still some of those early talks and lectures recorded. If you listen to all the bhajans, prayers to Queen Kunti, Shukadeva Goswami's prayers for invocation, Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th chapter, 2nd canto, which ISKCON Press made into a little booklet. I believe that was the cause of all causes. Prabhupada all recorded, and we can listen 57 years later, forever. And moving images of Srila Prabhupada, and to come in contact with the sincere followers of His divine grace. They are also conveying His association and His presence. This sharpens the sword of knowledge. Proper discrimination will result in accurate, correct ascertainment in all times, places, and circumstances. By their mercy, one can sharpen the sword of knowledge, and with the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's mercy, one must then conquer the enemies mentioned before. In this way, the devotee should be able to merge into his own transcendental bliss, and then he may give up his body and assume his spiritual identity. Just like through this long, hot dog days of summer, hot and sweaty, we come home, take a nice bath or air conditioning, and change into new clothes. Just what I was looking forward all day. So for the devotee, that parallel of giving up the material body is just like that analogy. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. This is the highest perfection of life, and the human body is meant for this purpose. Krishna's instructions to Uddhava in the Uddhava Gita, 11th canto, 20th chapter. Nirdeham adyam sadurlabham durlabham plavam sukalpam guru karandaranam. This human form of body is the most valuable boat, and the spiritual master is the captain. To guide the boat plying across the ocean of nescience, the instruction of Krishna is a favorable breeze. One must use all these facilities to cross over the ocean of nescience. Since the spiritual master is the captain, one must serve the spiritual master very sincerely, so that by his mercy, one will be able to get the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Perhaps what we all have very much in common as brothers and sisters, our common devotional service to Srila Prabhupada, is to maintain the service of his beloved Sri Sri Radha Govinda in Srila Prabhupada's Mandir, 305 Skimmerhorn Street here, in the highest and best and most perfect way we possibly can, cooperating to do so. Srila Prabhupada, his, so to speak, rags to riches story is simply a reciprocation of love between the Supreme Lord, Brajendra Nandana Sham, Krishna and Vrindavan, Sri Sri Radha Damodar, where Prabhupada was residing, coming here and by Srila Prabhupada's strong desire to save us and create our transcendental good fortune, he gave us a place where we could all come and associate together and help each other to achieve the ultimate goal of life. So in the material world, there's a lot that has to go into maintaining a property, all kinds of persons with their tendencies and capabilities, their destinies, their karma, their age differences, so many things, how we all cooperate together to get the real job done, which is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his pure devotees. A significant word here is Achyuta Bala. Spiritual master is certainly very merciful to his disciples, and consequently, by satisfying him, a devotee gets strength from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Mahaprabhu therefore says, Guru Krishna Prashadi Bhai Bhakti Lat the Bij. So this will be leading to a description of Balarama, Lord Nityananda Balaram, as the original spiritual master. You'll see how Prabhupada develops this purport. It's most amazing, beautiful, and ingenious. So patiently keep hearing this description of the spiritual master, his position and importance. If one seriously desires to return home back to Godhead, one must therefore become strong by pleasing the spiritual master, for thus one gets the weapon with which to conquer the enemy, and one also gets the grace of Krishna. Simply getting the weapon of jnana is insufficient. So many big scholars, so many big intellectuals, so much knowledge, but can they conquer over repeated birth, death, disease, and old age? No. They don't even know that that is the mission of their human form of life. What good is that knowledge? One must sharpen the weapon of knowledge by serving the spiritual master and adhering to his instructions. Krishna concludes the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita simply by rendering devotional service. All the results of philosophical cultivation, advanced fruitive activities, austerity, penance, everything is included. simply by rendering devotional service, and at the end, he reaches my supreme, imperishable, eternal abode, which is the name of the game. That's what we want. Then the candidate will get the mercy of the Supreme Personality of God. In general warfare, one must take help from his chariot and horses in order to conquer his enemy. And after conquering his enemy, he may give up the chariot and its paraphernalia. Similarly, as long as one has a human body, one should fully use it to obtain the highest perfection of life, naming going back home, back to Godhead. So I think the back door should be closed to make a distinction between us and the children. Haribol. One must be very careful in regard to the danger of falling down again into material bondage. The only assurance is to come to the stage of bhakti from which one is sure not to fall. Then one is free from the activities of the material world. In summary, as stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one must get in touch with a bona fide spiritual master coming in the parampara of Krishna consciousness, for by his mercy and instructions one is able to get strength from Krishna. Thus one engages in devotional service and attains the ultimate goal of life, the lotus feet of Vishnu. Significant in this verse are the words Jnanam Achyuta Bala. Jnana, knowledge, is given by Krishna, and when one serves the Guru and Krishna in order to hold the sword of Krishna's instructions, Balaram gives one strength. Balaram is Nityananda. Brajendra Nanda Jay Sachi Sutta Hoilo Se Balaram Hoilo Nitai. This Balaram comes with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and both of them are so merciful that in this age of Kali, one may very easily take shelter of their lotus feet. They come especially to deliver the fallen souls of this age. Papi, Tapi, Yata, Chila, Harinam, Udarila. Their weapon is Sankirtan. Hari Nam Sankirtan. Thus, one should accept the sword of knowledge from Krishna and be strong with the mercy of Balaram. So Krishna and Balaram are worshipped and supremely pleased in this age by performing Harinam Sankirtan. There is admonishment, there are 10 offenses in chanting the holy name which will prevent one from actually getting the mercy of Krishna of chanting the holy name. And the first one is to blaspheme or impede those who have dedicated their lives for the propagation of the holy names of the Lord, because it is the most essential activity in this age. And it's even described, there is no other way. Harer Nam, Harer Nam, Harer Nam, Eva Kevalam. There's no other way, no other way, no other way in this age of Kali, save and except taking the holy name and chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra as recommended by the Yugalar, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We are therefore worshipping Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan. In Dr. Upanishad, it is said, Balahitena Labdya Nacha Pramadat Tapasa Vapyalingat Iter Upayer Yatate Yastu Vidvams Tasyaisa Atma Visite Brahma Dhamma. One cannot attain the goal of life without the mercy of Balaram. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Nitayer Karuna Haibe Braje Radha Krishna Paibe. When one receives the mercy of Balaram, Nityananda, one can attain the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna very easily. E Sambandha Nahiyar, Prita Janma Gelatar, Vidya Kule Hi Karebe Tar. If one has no connection with Nitai, Balaram, then even though one is a very learned scholar or jnani, or has taken his birth in a very respectable family, these assets will not help him. You must therefore conquer the enemies of Krishna and of Krishna consciousness with the strength received from Balaram. Srila Prabhupada has said that you can go before Lord Balaram and reveal your innermost heart and secrets and mind and say, my dear sir, this is the problem, and he will help you. Mokshakama karava, mokshakar udaradina. One should not approach demigods. One should directly approach Krishna, whatever one's desire, and Krishna will handle it in such a way that you will ultimately become completely fulfilled in Krishna consciousness and lose the desire for that temporary material thing. We shouldn't be afraid to approach Krishna. Krishna is the best person, the Supreme Personality, to work out all the kinks in our life and consciousness. Otherwise, if one does not take shelter of Achyuta and Baladev, then the senses, acting as the horses, and the intelligence, acting as the driver, both being prone to material contamination, inattentively bring the body which acts as the chariot to the path of sense gratification. When one is thus attracted again by the rogues of Vishaya, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, the horses and the chariot driver are thrown into the blinding dark well of material existence, and thus one again is put into a dangerous and extremely fearful situation of repeated birth and death. Without the protection of Gaura Nitai, Krishna, and Balaram, one cannot get out of the dark well of ignorance in material existence. This is indicated here by the word nochet, which means then one will always remain in the dark well of material existence. The living entity must get strength from Nitai Gaur, or Krishna Balaram. Without the mercy of Nitai Gaur, there is no way to come out of this dark well of ignorance, as stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, second verse of the Adi Leela, chapter 1. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sodito Godadye Pushpavanto Chitro Sando Tamo Nudo. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Goda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. The material world is a dark well of ignorance. The fallen souls in this dark well must take shelter of the lotus feet of Gaura Nitai, for thus he can easily emerge from material existence. Without their strength, simply attempting to get out of the clutches of matter by speculative knowledge will be insignificant. So we're here in the most exalted place, the temple of Sri Sri Radha Govinda, also in the 7th canto. Srila Prabhupada said, anyone wishing to make spiritual advancement must take shelter of the temples established all over the world by the followers of Lord Chaitanya. It is the best place to make spiritual advancement. So Srila Prabhupada himself, on the order of the great Nityasiddha devotee, his spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, came here to execute the order to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. So New York is a very great mission. Just for that reason alone, what to speak of it being the most important city in this material world. So we pray to Balaram, to Krishna and Balaram, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai, that we can not only continue, but to increase and make better and better our service to the mission of Lord Chaitanya here in this New York Yatra Dham. We are humbly trying to make Harinam Sankirtan happen in this city, in public, every day. That's now been going on for over 10 years. Everyone here in Sri Sri Radha Govinda's congregation is welcome to participate. Making advancement in spiritual life, coming to the temple is very nice, but Srila Prabhupada writes in the chapter 12 devotional service of the Bhagavad Gita that if one takes part and helps in the missionary activities to distribute Krishna consciousness to the people in general, he will definitely, profoundly feel himself to be making spiritual advancement. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Nitai Gaur Premanandi Haribol. Nacharana, would you like to fill us in on some more understandings? Like Shivamai made announcements, but you didn't. So we were told to end the class by between 7:45 and 7:47. So if everybody's hungry, want to eat. It's a midweek.
Did she talk about the upcoming
Yes.
programs and so on?
Yes. So Balaram appears 8 days before Krishna. And you can read in the Krishna book how Balaram makes arrangements for Krishna's appearance, because Balaram is the Prakash Vigraha, the first expansion of Krishna, and therefore he is the, let's say, inner self of Krishna, knowing what pleases Krishna the most. So therefore he is the original spiritual master and the source of all other spiritual masters. So, yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So please, everyone make their plans for Janmashtami celebrations, as well as the following day, the most auspicious day of the appearance of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. You're all invited to also participate in those programs, so please make sure to keep tuned in to all those activities by reading your emails or your WhatsApp messages. How many here are on the WhatsApp group for announcements? If you're not, then make sure to get on it and read it. We invite everyone to submit an offering to Srila Prabhupada also. We're going to produce a nice book. So if you have the inner desire, just bring out your feelings for Srila Prabhupada on paper or on drawing or however you like, and bring it here or send it to me by email. We'll put it in a nice book to present to Srila Prabhupada on his Vyas Puja Day. So there's so much to look forward to in the service of Sri Sri Radha Govinda, and we pray that you will continually participate in every aspect of their service, and especially as Ram Roy Prabhu has mentioned, in the sharing of Krishna consciousness with others. And there's always something to do in that respect. If you need some help and some advice how to participate, there's so many opportunities here for you to join in. It doesn't, whatever time you have, whatever inclinations you have, whatever talents you have, it can all be used for the spreading of Krishna consciousness. And that will please Srila Prabhupada, that will invoke the blessings of Sri Sri Radha Govinda, and as was spoken about today, that will bring the strength that Sri Baladev can give us, that we can cross over this ocean of material world and go back to Godhead, go back to Krishna. Hare Krishna. I think it is time.
There are perhaps 2 or 3 more outdoor festival events coming up before it gets cold. One confirmed is on Tuesday, September 6th. We have a permit for the Nuremberg Bandshell in the mall of Central Park by Bethesda Fountain. It's near the Central Park Summer Stage, 68th Street, Hunter College, subway on the east side, or the 72nd Street west side. And that's a very nice program. And we've done 4 Times Square Harinams with a big stage and sound system. Father Duffy Square, 46th and 7th Street. 1 in March, 1 in May, 1 in June, and just 1 on Saturday, August 6th. And we'll see if we can obtain permits for the 10th of September and the 8th of 8th of October. These are Saturdays. Very ecstatic programs. Saudiyata Vijayal Jojendriya. So everyone can. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Balaram Jayanti Mahamotsav.